Impact Ag Partners helps support agricultural businesses through diverse weather patterns such as those we are reporting this morning. And joining me live is Hugh Killen, the new CEO of Impact Ag Partners. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thanks, Janie. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your organisation and what you do.
So Impact Ag Partners is an asset manager that's been around for 10 years now. And we either operate large-scale agricultural farms on behalf of other owners, or we actually have a fund as well where we have investors and we go and purchase property on their behalf. And I guess our key MO is focusing on regenerative agriculture and actually a transition from what we call extractive farming into regenerative agriculture.
And tell us a bit more about regenerative, if I can say that word, agriculture. It's a tricky one, or for me anyway.
Well, it's a tricky space. I mean, it is confusing for people when we start talking about regenerative agriculture, organics, soil carbon, etc. But when we break down regenerative agriculture, let's call it regen, it's actually focusing on the soil health of the farm. And so if we can increase the soil health on a farm, it becomes more productive, it protects the environment that it operates in, and ultimately at the end of the time it means those farms are more productive with less inputs as well. And so started very small scale, but what we're now seeing with people like Impact Ag is we can actually scale into institutional grade investment properties, so very large properties, and it helps lift the returns of the properties as well. So we get a good environmental and a good economic outcome from actually that transition to regenerative agriculture.
So what does it mean for farmers and what are they saying?
Well, farmers are actually really starting to look at the space more broad and not just regenerative agriculture, but starting to think about things such as carbon credits, biodiversity credits, nature-based solutions as well. So lots of big words in that. But what they're starting to understand now is if they can look after soil health, they'll have a more productive farm. They have the ability to register those farms under a carbon credit project and earn carbon credits, which is an income stream into the farms, and at the same time is actually lifting productivity, having a good benefit on the environment as well, and ultimately making their farms more productive and protecting it from the weather events that we're seeing at the moment as well. So farmers are starting to actually find their way through this space. And as I said, it's moving from what I would say probably more of a cottage industry might be the wrong way to put it, but in saying it's more mainstream and broader globally, not just in Australia.
So how are we faring in the country and how do you transition? Is it a hard transition?
The transition can be difficult, and that's one of the challenges you've got. So if you're a farming operator and you're operating, let's say, a 3% return on your farm, moving to regen, which can have a dip in productivity, can be very difficult to take on board. So one of the areas that we focus at Impact Ag is thinking about how do we do the transition finance, how do we help farms through that, and how do we put the right processes in place in terms of managing the property so we can get through that productivity dip, because as you come through the other side of it, you actually become more productive. So you've got to manage that transition, which can be quite complicated for farmers to actually step through.
Yeah, no, it sounds fascinating and very interesting. As we know, a lot of farmers say that they feel second rate and they're not getting, a look in, and certainly with transmission lines and, what's going on across with renewables and so forth. But this sounds like it's something that they're really having a strong input in, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And if you think about any farmer, they see themselves as stewards of the land, which they genuinely are. And they really do focus on future generations when they think about their assets. And things like regenerative agriculture help them in that space. And one of the reasons I'm involved in agriculture is I want farmers to have that opportunity to be more productive, to make more money, create a better environmental outcome for themselves and their kids and grandkids, but ultimately to create more high quality, lower impact food that we export around the world. And you asked the question about how does Australia fare in this space. Australia is a great exporter globally of wonderful food and agricultural or food inputs. I'd like to see us be able to lead a little bit more in this space in terms of regenerative agriculture and reducing our carbon footprints overall, but at the same time getting paid to do that, which is ultimately what Impact Ag does. So we focus on doing that on behalf of our investors and family offices that trust us with their capital to go and acquire and run their farms. And we've got institutional investors that work with us on that space as well. So hopefully, I think there's a trickle-down effect that if we can do this at the institutional level, then we can help the family farms as well.
Well, we look forward to hearing more, and thank you very much for joining us and explaining all of that. It sounds fantastic. Thank you.
No worries, Janie. Thank you.